It's Scott Burke with BeachCity Life at the BeachCity Study Gold Coast Entrepreneur Program, and today we're here with Nicklas Bergman, Swedish entrepreneur, author, investor and futurist. Welcome to the program, Nicklas.
Thank you. Good morning or good afternoon.
I'd like to start today, Nicklas, if we could, by talking a little bit about your background as an entrepreneur. Can you tell us, how you started your entrepreneurial career?
Well, it's always difficult when you look back, but I think it came with my family, and then my father has always been an entrepreneur in many different ways, and I've always been part of business discussions back home. And then we together started a company in Romania in 1990, right after the Berlin Wall fell down and they executed Ceausescu in Romania. So we built Volvo's presence there during the 1990s. But then slowly, gradually, I shifted over to working more and more with technology, which is one of my favorite topics, working with very early stage technology investments, mostly coming out of the university environments.
Yes.
But still from an entrepreneurial perspective, I think. I'm not much of an investor, like by nature.
A conventional VC.
No, I very much more enjoy the discussions, the innovations, the company building a lot more than I enjoy the board meetings and the finance and the cap tables.
So that leads me to my next question, which is, how did you become a futurist?
Well, that's also maybe sort of a national transition from entrepreneur then to investor. And then since I have all these things that I'm interested in, when it comes to technology, and I've always been very curious about where we're going, where we're heading. It was maybe just a natural progression to continue, and then combining my interest in entrepreneurialism with my investment interest, and then also my interest in the future and the future of technology and society, just to see the combination there, actually.
What does a futurist do?
Well, that's a good question, because anyone that tells you that they can tell you about the future, they're probably lying. So, well, for me, it's just trying to make sense of all the noise that's out there. Trying to, in a sort of structured way, understand where we're heading and how that will, those trends, those signs that we see, how that will affect us and change the way we live and work in the future.
So I understand that's really what your book is concerned with. How do we make sense of the future, and how do we make decisions today and moving into the future around business in particular? And so perhaps you can talk a little bit about the book, what motivated you to write it, and what are some of the key messages that we should be taking away from the book?
Yeah. Well, the background is that after having worked as an investor for the past 15 years, I got a bit fed up with all the meetings, the lawyers and the bankers and the board meetings and everything that comes around that does not really add value for me. So urged by a friend of mine, I started doing the occasional keynotes, speeches on the future of technology and business. And in those settings, people were asking me about my notes or my slides, and I wasn't really happy to give that away. So I started writing a book. Long story short, there was a publisher that got hold of an early draft of that, and we started discussion, and then they wanted to publish it. And it was really a luxury to write a book and to close the door, turn off the phone, and do some thinking. Actually, it rarely happens when you're an entrepreneur that you have time to think, actually. So,
right.
But the basic thing about the book is that based on a number of mega trends, with an aging society, our environmental challenges, the globalization and economic shift to the east, and also technology as a fuel, as a foundation for all these other megatrends, I dove into technology and different technologies. We're in a time now when IT is maturing. We see a lot of other technologies gaining speed, nanotechnology, everything, our understanding of the human brain, biotechnology and genetics, for example. So with those technologies behind, and in a time where IT in this case is maturing, we see cross-pollination between new technologies, which is amazing. There's so much innovation going on in these areas right now. So what I try to do in the book is to give a framework on how to look at technologies in a new way from a business perspective. As simple as possible to analyze technology, see what's out there, understanding the time perspective of it, to assess the business implications for your industry, for your market, for your customer, for your internal company processes and organization, and then also to adapt to that new reality. So it's a sort of a three-way process, iterative. So you come back to the beginning every once in a while.
Our audience is very much a Gen Z millennial audience. What advice do you have for young, aspiring, Gen Z millennial entrepreneurs generally? And then also, what are some of the key takeaway messages from your book for that audience? Young, millennial, Gen Z, aspiring entrepreneurs. What can they learn from your book?
Well, it was a long time ago I was that young, I must say. Feels weird, but that's true. I think that for me, looking back, I mean, I started my first company when I was 20, or as a co-founder. And I think, I mean, what's really good when you're young is that you have, that there's no limitations. You just do things. And I think that that's for any entrepreneur, any aspiring entrepreneur. I think start small, don't necessarily think too much, just do it. That's one thing. When it comes to, if you're into technology and that's that part of the startup world, I think to stay curious, to question things, to see the opportunities in technology, to try to understand how you can use technology in the best way possible, solve problems in industries that might not have seen that technology before, especially if it's a technology that's been used in another industry before. That's a couple of takeaways, I think, that could be useful in that sense. And it's also very interesting right now because when it comes to technology today, it's so within reach. It's not expensive. You don't have to build your own server farms or get a dedicated high-speed internet line and pay a lot for that. Very much is in the cloud, and all these services are available at a fraction of the cost that it was just 10 years ago.
Yes, I think that's fantastic advice. Nicklas, thank you very much for making time to talk to us today, and hopefully we'll have the opportunity to talk to you at greater length in the future.
You know where I am. Have a good time. Take care. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay.